Hello, guys. My name is Father Goose, or you may know me as Del Moose Padre. And today is Easter, or at least it's heading towards Easter Monday, as I speak to you tonight about the love and design and pleasures and natures of God, our Creator. Now, you're probably looking at me and you're wondering, now why are you claiming to be a storyteller to people when you may just have this obsolete Halloween bag with goods inside? Now, you're probably also wondering, what is there about the design of God and the design of nature? And could there actually be the design of God or even a God? Well, let me put it this way. If you say somehow that you never have time for God, is that also kind of like saying that you never have time for nature, and you never have time for creation, and you never have time for faith, and you never have time for belief, and you never have time for hope, and you never have time for pleasure, and you never have time for humor, and you never have time for money, and you never have time for shopping, and you never have time for madness, and you never have time for war, and you never have time for peace, and you never have time for humanity. The list goes on. And that's why I'm going to pull out something from this trick-or-treat bag here of the kitty cat stuff, just to show you some things inside. Like in here I have, of course, my copy of the Bible here. Although the type of brand that it is, it's not quite exactly known to me, because definitely the print is a little bit awkward and interesting and irrational. Some book brands are not very well known, especially if you go to Dollar Tree and Walmart and Target, and if you find books on the shelves that are something of a mystery, or even if you go to a Christian bookstore like I did and you find this Bible and you're wondering, what could this Bible possibly be? Well, it is in leather, and it definitely is something with the cross, and definitely that is something of significance. And hey, when it comes to treats, would you like some candy? I'll have these candies when I'm done here with my little interpretation for you today of what it means to have nature, design, reality, creation, and God above us. Now, you're probably asking, could there ever be a God below us? Well, if there would ever be such thing as a God below us, there would have to be with use of the word below as a metaphor. And definitely there's a section of the Bible that talks about the evils of lands with Omri and Ahab. This is a section in the Bible that I may point out to. It's a section called Micah. It's the book of Micah. And in the book of Micah, you will see from pages of pages that there's a section called Verdict of Judgment, as in verdict of judgment, if I may use more proper manner of speaking. And remember, I am Father Goose. I am not some crazy fanatic or some guy who has some obsolete notion that came from the caveman period thousands of years ago, such as like, I will hit you with this rock and hope that you die. Definitely anything like that in the Bible, you need to brush off and take it as a hint that the ancients were wrong on some things. And this section of the Bible, called Verdict of Judgment, is evidence of evils that can exist according to a tribe legend. I describe this definitely as a legend because although the legend does mention money and food and water and hunger and land and all the prophets of shelter kingdom ways and justice or injustice, we are not exactly sure with this section how things go according to this verdict of judgment. Because what does it mean to have a verdict? Well, verdict sounds tricky. It sounds tricky. You're probably thinking, the word verdict sounds like something I cannot quite consume with my common sense and with my everyday language of plain English. And to that extent, you're right. And the reason is because it is often the role and the interest of politicians to scratch the paper and see if there's a law underneath the surface. So maybe underneath the surface, under the surface, there is something that a politician can scratch, or that a leader can scratch, and that a community can scratch, and that a people can scratch. And this part of verdict of judgment is evidence of that. I will be careful with my letter V as I read this. The voice of Yahweh calls out to the city, and it is wise to fear your name. Pay attention to the rod and the one who ordained it. And what does that mean? Well, it's very tricky exactly to know what is meant by rod and what is meant by, this one. Like when it comes to the rod, should the rod be considered something like, let's say, a jewel or a precious gold or a precious wooden artifact? What should it exactly be in our understanding of the word rod? Well, often the word rod would be a metaphor in the Bible. Not exactly always a literal exact word, but it would be a metaphor, a symbol, a picture, an image of authority with some unfair practices of hunger, lust, and desires. And definitely the verdict of judgment, when I look through this, it shows a lot of sad things of the verdict with the evils on the mention to the fly. And it goes on. Are there still the treasures of wickedness and the accursed short measure in the house of the wicked? Now think of the phrase short measure, or like wicked measure and those kinds of things. Even atheists today often use the word wicked in many cases with more believing notion than a Christian would, because atheist people often know what it means for something to be wicked, as in like somebody ripped you off, somebody like took your candy, somebody was playing tricks with you, and that's why I have this for Easter. You see, somebody can play tricks on you even if it's not Halloween. So definitely, you got to keep that in mind. So let's not have that superstition that tricks and treats only happen on Halloween. No, tricks and treats are everlasting. They go on and on for as long as nature exists, with the willpower of man and with the willpower of God. And definitely, the Bible continues on that assumption. Can I excuse wicked scales or bags of deceptive weights? My answer to that is not quite. Because often weight is a matter of opinion. It's a matter of opinion that something is 1 pound, or that something is 20 ounces, or that something is 2.5 ounces, or that something is a cup, or that something is a glass. When I say cup and glass, you're probably even wondering, should it be 8 ounces or 12 ounces or 6 ounces or 16 ounces or 33 ounces or 60 ounces? What should a cup be? Just the word weight is often our metaphor that we use today to describe, like the weight of food, the weight of your body, the weight of a diet's plan, and the weight of nutrition and those kinds of things. And it goes on here in the Bible. For the wealthy of the city are full of violence, and its residents speak lies. The tongues in their mouths are deceitful. Now, definitely, never let the ugly words distract you from the simple realities that reoccur on a day-to-day basis. When we put those ugly words together, if we may think of them as ugly words like with ancient literature and ancient embarrassments and ancient superstitions of food, lust, and pleasure, what does it mean to have like all this candy and all this magic and trickery in a farmland or in a harvest or in a kingdom's turmoil of the nature of goodness? What it means is we often in reality make goods with a struggle, with a lot of struggle of like what it means to have a good, what it means to have, a faith, what it means to have an actual object of our full belief. Because we may have that object or may have that material, and yet we could fall into disappointments. And the verdict of judgment goes on and on and on. It mentions olives, it mentions grapes, it mentions wine, it mentions a house, it mentions residence, it mentions contempt, it mentions scorn, it mentions satisfaction, it mentions severity. It mentions all these things because in reality, even if you have all this candy in your hands, sometimes the sweetness of a lollipop can distract you from the bitter stick that holds the candy up to the lollipop point. And that's my metaphor for you today. This is Mother Goose, and you take care. God bless.